Welcome to audiences around the globe. Steve Gelbs, Todd Zeal, we welcome you to sunny Clover Park in Port St. Lucie, Florida. 78 degrees for those of you in New York. We apologize.
And a little bit of mugginess. It's starting to feel like spring now.
It really is. And in case you don't know who you're watching, number 21, New York Mets pitcher Max Scherzer. A sim game here. He's expected to pitch 4 innings. And, I mean, Todd, let's just start with that. Few days in, but it's kind of a surreal thing to see Max Scherzer, a New York Mets pitcher now.
Yeah, it is. I had a chance to meet him, shake his hand, talk to him a little bit yesterday, and just I've been a fan watching him and just the way he goes about his business, his tenacity, and I, for one, like a lot of fans out there, I'm sure, look forward to seeing him dealing out there in a Mets uniform all season.
So Mark Canha in the box against him right now, and we were talking about this right before we went live, but as a former hitter, this is like worst case scenario for you early in spring.
Some guys like this whole thing, and Canha likes it because he's got himself a blue single. He is playing with only 2 outfielders, though, so Max is at a little disadvantage. But no, in all seriousness, when we do inter-squad games or what they used to just do with live BP, where the guys stand in against pitchers, the pitchers are getting their work in. They're trying to get you out. It's early in spring. You're just trying to get a feel of what you're doing at the plate. And it could be the worst part about spring training for a position player to have to step in against a guy that's trying to get himself ready for the season on the mound.
You know, it is one of these things, too, where you start to see already how the shortened spring training is changing things. We're less than a week into spring. You would never see a sim game like this, full defense, umpired just 3-4 days into spring prior.
No, you absolutely would not. And even that goes to, I think, something that has evolved certainly since my time playing, and that's that the guys are ready when they get to camp. They're in good shape. They work out, 365 days a year, and they're much more baseball ready than they used to be. It used to be for the first 2 or 3 weeks of camp, even if you were taking live BP against pitchers, they wouldn't throw an off-speed pitch. It would be fastballs only. You would kind of know what they were doing. And only a couple weeks in, when they start throwing breaking balls, you're going to see Max using the whole arsenal already, with 2 days into camp.
So what is Max doing here, Todd? What's the goal of a day like today for him?
I think it's just to start getting that body and that mentality, because he's such a guy that, has that keen focus. He's very, very intense. And right now for him, it's a workout, but I don't think he ever takes it as if, hey, it's okay if these guys hit me. He wants to find ways to get guys out. He wants to make sure his breaking ball is breaking. He wants to be sure that he's got some command of his pitches. And so it's like a stressed bullpen instead of just a light workout.
What's the role of a catcher here? I mean, you've been there before, especially with a guy like Scherzer, that caliber. Are you back there? Are you calling pitches? Are you trying to give your thoughts on things, or are you just letting him do what he wants to do?
Well, that was a nice two-seamer right there that he just got the strikeout on, and that's one of the things. To your point, McCann's behind the plate. That's for a reason. McCann's going to be needing to see what it's like. He's seen what it's like to face Max Scherzer from home plate, and he's, I'm sure, been catching him in the bullpen. But it's different when you get into game situation. You get a feel for if you guys are on the same page calling pitches. So, yeah, absolutely. I think he's working with him to try to get that same rhythm that Max is getting. He starts out with a first pitch breaking ball there, back door. And, I think...
Fun for Guillorme, huh?
Yeah, that's fun. Well, he'll foul off 15 pitches in the next couple of at-bats.
This live stream is going to go on for the next 2.5 hours as we try and get through 4 innings of Max Scherzer because of Guillorme up at bat.
But, no, I think to that point, I think it's a good question. I think it's as much a learning experience for McCann back there as it is for Max on the mound. They want to be in sync. They want to be in rhythm. And the best way to do that is not in the bullpen. You can see a guy in the bullpen and, as they used to say, catch him like with a pair of tweezers. when you're out here on the mound and he's getting his good stuff, he's having the ball move, got in right there on Luis. That's when you're going to really see what his ball does, the action of it, how you're going to be able to react to it, the way to frame it, which is a big deal for McCann. He prides himself on framing, and the movement of the ball from a guy like Max will help dictate the way he's able to frame. So this is all a learning experience for especially the battery.
And as a quick aside, this is Matt Reynolds stepping into the box, old friend back in Mets camp right now. You know, you talk about it from a catcher's perspective, though, Todd. What about from a defender's perspective, from an infielder's perspective? I know, you speak to a guy like Lindor who talks so much about feel and positioning based on what he, thinks reading the hitters, what he thinks of how the pitches are moving. Is there an adjustment from an infielder's perspective, too, of just learning exactly how those pitches move from behind and what hitters do with certain pitches? Is that overblown, or is this useful?
No, I think it is useful, and especially for a guy like Lindor, because you make that point. He's very cognizant of the pitch selection, the pitch location, and you'll see him adjust in real time on the pitches based on where he thinks that ball is going to go. And that's the key to being such a great infielder as he is. It's got to be instinctual, like Gretzky always knowing where the puck's going to be. He is watching to see if he says he's coming in, what does that mean? What kind of action does that put? What does that mean for a hitter, especially a right-handed hitter? Is it going to be, more likely to be on the ground, in the hole? So, yeah, they're all learning, and you could see even with he and McNeil over the middle, he's seeing the pitches and he's relaying to Jeff right there, who's covering second, and that will often depend on pitch selection as well. I mean, obviously, with Francisco so deep in the hole there, he's not going to be covering second on a steal, but they are letting each other know fastball or off speed to maybe get that one step advantage that they need sometimes, and that may be the difference between, a force out or a base hit.
Reynolds grounds into a force out, and that is it for the top half of the first here.
Looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good,
yeah,
right?
Max
Mid-season form.
Bad.
Wasn't thrown by that Canna base hit.
No, yeah, he's like, hey, I don't have a right fielder. That's all right. We'll give him that bloop. Got him with the curveball to end the inning, though. That was the first pitch. A breaking ball to Reynolds that he got the ground out on. We were just talking about watching the hitters adjust, and Francisco had a step more in the hole on that ball. The ball got pulled to JD for the out.
What did you think of Max there in the first?
I mean, look, Max always looks like a guy you don't want to face. I mean, that's just whether it be just the way he looks at you up on the mound, just that maximum effort kind of feeling that he has. You always feel like this guy takes it personally if you do anything against him, and he's there to beat you, and maybe he's there to embarrass you. He's that kind of guy. And as a hitter, that intensity can kind of help you step up your game at times, but he is certainly a guy that I think everybody on both sides of the diamond has great respect for, and like this. People come out here just to watch him throw in an inter-squad game just because it's who he is.
People come out here, people live stream and do commentate.
We do.
Do some play-by-play for this sim game. It's interesting what you say, though, Todd, about the intensity in all forms, even right now, and not necessarily just wanting to beat you but embarrass you. That's what James McCann said about catching DeGrom. And interestingly enough, because McCann was in Detroit not for a long time with Scherzer, but was there at the beginning of his career. He talked about, before they were teammates, DeGrom and Scherzer, how they're very similar in that way, where it's no matter what, the competitive nature is just ratcheted up all the way. And we saw, this is either last year or the year before, that we had DeGrom mic'd up, and remember it was very early on, and he gave up a base hit or something in live BP, and he didn't want to give it. He wasn't supposed to throw change-ups or curves or something like that, right? Or sliders, and he busted him out. When you get that level of intensity, not just with one guy, but now a second guy in that rotation, and some of the others that they've brought in, just what does that do for a clubhouse? How does that elevate everybody?
I think, I mean, you've got also two sort of different personalities. Jacob being very quiet, reserved, likes to keep to his own program. Max is a little bit more, demonstrative in his actions, and he's very emotional on the field. Jake kind of holds it all in, but both of them have that intensity that you're talking about, and both of them are ultra competitive, and so I think that can only help the overall. They'll have some internal competition as well. As Pete drives one to right, well, there's a right fielder out there, or Pete would have had a double, but Pete looks pretty good right there. Just that's a strong man.
Strong, and
just a strong human being.
We just should comment. It's just incredible that he's out here a few days after that.
It
just
is incredible
horrific incident.
And I think the way they chronicled it afterwards with he and his wife was really appropriate and fitting and moving, that you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know, and you feel just blessed to be here. So as we all feel.
Robinson Cano, right on that.
He was. David Peterson, by the way, is the one on the hill right here. And I noticed yesterday, David's just, in the clubhouse and saying hello to him, just such a big, strong guy.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't like that Robbie was right on that one. And there you go. This is exactly what I'm talking about, why it's so fun to do this early in spring as a hitter. He's like, I just got beamed. Now I got to go back in the box and face this guy. This is spring training. Get the ball over the plate. But
you saw Peterson, though. He just threw down the rosin bag. He's pretty annoying. Talk about underrated intensity is David Peterson also.
He is, he's hardcore. And I think, it's what I first noticed about him. Robbie stayed on that curveball that time, that slider, but it hung a little bit. David's not quite sharp getting that to the outside part of the plate yet. But David is one of those guys that when he first came up, it was hard to read him because he's so sort of quiet and stoic, doesn't give you a lot in an interview, as I'm sure you have been very well aware of. But it competes. He does not like to get beat. He's very intense on the mound. And that translated to a matter of sort of poise and maturity for a guy that was just getting to the big leagues. He did not give in, did not want to give in, did not want to give up a run, and found his way out of a lot of early jams in his early big league career.
Todd, this is an interesting year for Peterson. He's kind of a forgotten man. I mean, he went into last season as a significant part of the rotation, and obviously with the additions of Scherzer and Bassett, you have Walker and Carrasco, who Walker is still a couple weeks behind, but you don't know if Peterson's going to be a part of this team on opening day. You don't know if he's going to be ultimately a part of the bullpen. You don't know if he's going to start out in AAA, but this is kind of I don't know, there's a lot up in the air for the former first rounder going into this season.
I think there is. I agree with you, and I think he's probably feeling even maybe more than last spring. I feel like he probably thinks he's got more to prove this spring than any other time in his past as he strikes out JD. Although 3 outs isn't enough, he's going to stay in there for another hitter.
Just what the fans didn't see, but as everybody's exiting the field, Jeremy Hefner just walks to the top step of the dugout, says, "Get back
You're
out
out there for one more, kid." And I think partly is they might want to get Lindor up there here in the first against the left-hander. He's obviously wants to hit right-handed right now. So But back to David, yeah, I think it's a big spring for him. And, is he going to be totally healthy? That's going to be the one thing that they're looking for. But there's no other lefties that are emerging to be a part of this rotation. He's that guy. And especially as you consider the health of a couple of the other guys, he should be that guy leaving camp if the other guys aren't ready in that fifth rotation spot. And I think he knows that. And so this is an important spring, and he's got to try to do what he can to impress Buck and Jeremy to make sure that they know he's ready.
We spoke to Lindor yesterday, and I thought it was a pretty insightful session, especially hearing him talk about the early conversations he's had with Buck Showalter. We know that last year did not go the way that Francisco had wanted it to. He talked about life just feeling a little faster, speeding up on him. First years in New York do that to people. First years of big contracts do that to people. From your experience, and especially with a guy like Buck at the helm, how different do you think this will be for Lindor, just in terms of feel and expectations from his own personal perspective, knowing what it's going to be like having that year under his belt?
Yeah, I think it will be different for him. And I think you said two things there. Guy, expectations in New York and expectations on a big contract. He had both. So some guys can come here, be at the top of their game, and only have to adjust to, what it's like, the intensity of New York City. When you come here and have a $340 million contract on top of adjusting to New York City and then feeling like you've got to put the team on your shoulders, it can add a level of pressure. And I think he also had an amazing spring last year.
Yeah.
He came out of here thinking he was ready to go, and then the cold start just, I think, made him start feeling the heat of all the things we're talking about. A hot start would have probably broken a lot of those barriers away, and he probably would have been able to relax earlier in the season. Took him a while to relax. I think this year he's going to be relaxed from day one. He knows that he finished the season strong. He knows that the organization is bringing in pieces to be a winning franchise, and
it's not all on him anymore. It's not all on him. And Buck talked to, look at this guy on the mound.
On the mound, yeah.
It is amazing because last spring it was all about Lindor. It was all anybody talked about. He was the guy, and it's almost as if he's forgotten going into this spring because so much focus is on the guy on the hill right now.
Yeah, I think that as a player, and he's a guy that's used to the limelight. He came up and was flashing the glove right away, and a 30 home run guy in the American League, and it was always about how great he is and was going to be. But it must be nice for a guy even that's used to that kind of focus to have some other guys in camp that can take some of that away. And now, yeah, he's a part of the team. It's not, let's see who Francisco Lindor is. Now it's, let's see how good he can be with the other pieces that they brought.
And, I got to say, sometimes it's not just in baseball, in life, in any walk of life. Sometimes just the way someone presents something to you, someone says something to you, it can change your outlook. And again, listening to him talk about Buck yesterday, and Buck saying the New York fans want a reason to embrace you, to love you. Just give them that reason. And the no nonsense that we heard from Buck overall with, hey, it's all within our control. Just play better. It's so simple, but just play better. And I think sometimes, and this isn't just specific to Francisco, I think sometimes last year when you look at this team, there was so much going on trying to dissect 1,000 different things. What's wrong? We have a Dom homer right here. Is that Dom up there? That's a Dom homer.
Dom homer, he took that first pitch on the outside corner. Max tried to come in, and that was as good a hand action as I've seen out of Dom, because that ball was up and in, and he just fired the hands. He's going right into the dugout. He's not even going to score.
Ventura.
He's not even going to score. He's going to take his triple. He doesn't get a lot of triples. I think he wants a triple instead of a homer today.
By the way, you were very professional right there, where I was so in my own head, my own point. I wasn't even watching. I didn't even know who was up, and you just point to the field.
I'm like, that's Dom Smith, who I think is nice work by Pete over at first base. I think JD was trying to give him a long hop on that deep ground ball, but gave him a little bit of a short hop, made it a little tougher on Pete. But you know what? Going back to what you were saying about Lindor, it's funny because it sounds so easy. Just play better. But there's times when you're doing everything you can to play better and you're not good. But that's when accountability comes into play, and I think that may be as big a lesson as he had to learn last season, is that these fans, as you said and as Buck said, want to embrace you. They want a reason to cheer for you and carry you off the field. And they know that you're not going to be that guy that does it every day, day in and day out. But when you're accountable, when you give the respect to the fans that I think the New York fans expect and deserve, then they'll support you during those downtimes and then really pick you up when things start going well.
And to get back to the guy on the mound for a second, to follow through with this point, though, in Max Scherzer, you can make the argument, when he signed with the Nationals, huge deal. He's one of those rare guys that just, he was probably underpaid, right? Like, he brought it from day one. None of the expectations seemed to get to him at all. And I know we're still getting to know him a little bit, but again, in terms of a lead by example too, what does he bring in terms of just showing how it's done that is different from a lot of guys, different from he's a different animal.
He
definitely is.
He is, and I get the sense that he feels like he's made a considerable amount of money a game. This is not, he doesn't play for the contract. He doesn't play for the money anymore. He plays because he loves to compete and he wants to win. He got the taste of winning a championship in Washington. I heard him talking about it yesterday.
With Gary, that was a great answer, right? With Gary Apple on set.
Yeah.
Where he said, "What's your motivation now?"
Yeah.
At 37, he goes, "I
win
a championship. That's all I need. What
period.
else do I need?"
And with guys, you hear a lot of guys say that. He lives. He actually, I absolutely believe every word of that, and I think he feels like he's a guy that can come here and go with the other pieces. He knows he's not going to carry this team on his shoulders, but he is going to do his part to help this team win, and it does translate to outside of just what he does on the mound every fifth day. To your point, his attitude, I think that intensity, his having been through all the wars, having been through playoffs and World Series, I think that's going to add another layer to what his influence can be.
It's such a show me thing, right? And that's what he gets, and that's what Buck gets. Back to the simplicity of the whole thing, where just play better is what Buck said again, right? That's it. There's just not going to be. There's no nonsense, and there's not going to be any nonsense from Max at all. Let's go out there and pitch well, play well, and everything else will come. I think it's a pretty clear tone that's being set very early.
Yeah, I had this very strange coincidental occurrence years ago, 1988. I was coming to spring training and I was driving across the country, and I'm like, I've got to go to St. Pete, Florida, but I want to go watch a game at Vero Beach. I grew up a Dodger fan. I wanted to see a game at Vero Beach. So I stop in, I get a ticket, I go and I sit right behind the dugout. And right before the game started, the very famous incident, it became a very famous incident, Kurt Gibson put on his hat and Mickey Hatcher had put the eye black inside the brim of his hat. He felt it, realized that they had played a joke on him. Mickey's laughing, everybody's laughing. Gibson, from that second, snapped. And when I say he snapped, he was cursing. He told all the guys up and down the dugout, I'm not here to effing play games. I'm here to win. And if you guys don't want to win, then I'm out of here. And he, with his cleats on, got up, climbed over the dugout, at Vero Beach, climbed over the dugout in the stands, click, 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 and walked back to the clubhouse and left. And Tommy's like, wait, what's going on? And they end up winning the championship that year. He is their leader. I feel Max is that kind of guy. He has that kind of intensity, and he'll make other people accountable in the same way that I thought Gibson did with that '88 Dodger team.
It's a It's an unbelievable story, and it's a great point. I think it's a great parallel, a great comparison. I do think that Max does that, and I think Jake does that, but having a second one and having, again, Jake is one of, if not the most competitive people I've ever talked to. And you talk to players not just on his own team, but that face him, and you get the same impression. But there is a difference in how they carry themselves. Jake is very understated, whereas that intensity is very overt with Max. And I do wonder if that does change it a little bit more. If it's worth it having somebody that is that open about the intensity. You know what I mean?
I think outside perception is probably where that plays a bigger role. And what I mean by that is the guys in the clubhouse, as well as anybody, know how competitive Jacob is and how every time he goes out there, he expects perfection. I mean, he doesn't really give himself credit for anything less than perfection. There's always ways to improve, and it's not lip service. He believes it.
Yeah.
And so I think from internally, everybody on this field and in that clubhouse with him wants to do better because they know how competitive he is, and they wish they could just bring their game to the level that he does. Max does that where fans see it as well, and the opposition sees it as well. And that may be the biggest difference in them. I think from a mindset internally, I think they have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. My favorite Jake story from last year, when you talk about the opposition sensing that intensity, the game against the Nationals, that was, a two-hitter? I mean, 14 strikes, something crazy, 15 strike. Remember that game that was just ridiculous, one of his probably 7 ridiculous games in the first half last season. And I remember talking to Kevin Long after it, and he said in the second inning, I think, Castro maybe got like a seeing eye single, and everybody in the dugout said, all right, well, at least we're not going to get no hit.
Right.
You're talking about major league hitters in the second inning.
Yeah.
Saying, thank God we got that one hit.
And I haven't heard anything like that since people talk about Koufax.
Right.
So, funny point, because I had a chance to spend a lot of time with Brandon Nimmo yesterday. We did some things in the cage. He talked through some of his hitting philosophy and some of his improvements. And I was laughing at this right now because I hadn't seen him on the field, but he's running in there against Peterson. He told me, as he does a great job going the opposite field with two strikes.
With 2 strikes with a shift on him.
2 strikes with the
They're
shift.
playing the shift on him.
And it goes to the point is I asked him how he had made such vast improvement against left-handers last season, and he said he wore out David Peterson in camp. He said every time David would throw, whether it be on the side of the bullpen, simulated game, batting practice, he said, I want to be in the box against him, and against any left-handers, and he asked to be able to hit against lefties so we could see more and get more comfortable there. And as you saw right there, that's just a great microcosm of how he's improved his game at the plate.
It's a great observation to point out that because he definitely asked to face Peterson today. There's no doubt about it.
Question.
Because 2 years ago, when he struggled in 2020, that was the big thing, is that in summer camp, because it was so regimented and they had, it was during the beginning of COVID and they had those, he said that he faced no lefties. And that was the reason that he struggled all year. And so you're right, he put an emphasis on it, and the way that he hit against lefties last year, it worked for him. So I would not be surprised if this is just the beginning of Nimmo seeing a lot of lefties in games. I'm sure if they face lefties, Nimmo will be in there.
I mean, he showed that he should be in the lineup, left-hander, right-hander, doesn't really matter. And look, I had a lot of respect for him anyway, having known him, the way he conducts himself, but had a great time spending time with him yesterday, just talking about some of the other things that I noticed with him last year, shortening up with 2 strikes, fighting off tough pitches to stay in at bats, how he became so patient at the plate, and all of those things. I think they're going to highlight some of those things on Hot Stove tonight. But
not to give it all away, but was there one thing that was really interesting to you?
There was a couple. There was a couple of things, because some influence from some guys that you'll recognize the names that I thought was really interesting. I always find it interesting when guys that are at this level look to other guys in the big leagues and draw something from them. You know, they're contemporaries, not necessarily, oh, I looked at Babe Ruth on how to hit home runs. No, talking about their contemporaries and respecting what they do and maybe taking a piece of that into their own game. And Nimmo talks about a couple of guys.
Did he talk
that
about
had a big
Votto?
influence.
Did he talk about Votto?
Maybe Joey Votto could have been one of those guys. Yeah, I know that you would know, and maybe
Did he tell the 3-0 story?
Maybe a teammate of his as well. But
Yeah.
No, you're going to have to tell the 3-0 story.
Okay, I'll tell the 3-0 story. I did it. It was one of my favorite things that happened last year in the season because, I mean, you know, Todd, sometimes there's no greater feeling than putting something out there and then it immediately happening.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You feel like a genius. But he, Joey Votto had been swinging more. I don't want to get this wrong, but he had been swinging more 3-0 last year.
Yeah.
And so the Mets were playing the Reds, and Nimmo noticed that Votto swung 3-0, and he went and asked him about it because Votto had never been a guy that swung 3-0.
Right.
And he said to Nimmo that in the current incarnation of Major League Baseball, 3-0 is the only remaining count where it's a fastball count. And so you have to accept if you're gonna swing, you have to accept that sometimes it's not going to go the way you want it to go, and that'll be frustrating for a guy of Nimmo's mentality who's very similar to Votto, right, where they want to get on base. But if you want to sit there and attack a pitch, that's the fastball you're going to get. And Nimmo, prior to that point, had only swung 3-0 one time in his career. And I told that story the next day on the air, and he got 3-0, and he swung 3-0.
And did he get a hit?
I don't think he got it.
Remember?
No, I don't think
matter.
it worked out. But it doesn't matter. But yeah,
incidental.
but it's interesting how even in the short time that Nimmo's been a major leaguer, how much that game is, because it's true. It's the only count now where you're gonna get a pitch 3-0.
It is.
Fastball 3-0.
And analytics support swinging 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it used to be, hey, make the pitcher work, find your way on base, raise the pitch count, don't do a favor. All of those things don't really apply anymore because there's so many arms in the bullpen that you're not worried about getting their pitch count up anymore because there's another fresh arm to come in after them. So it does become, hey, it used to be like 2-0, you'd get a fastball. You don't get fastballs 2-0 anymore. You only get them 3-0. So if you're a fastball hitter, take your chance. And you saw a lot of damage being done in the last, I would say 2 seasons, but last year, a lot of damage being done on 3-0.
So let's get back to Max now. Saw him, he's taking the mound now for the 3rd inning. Saw him blow a fastball
Which that,
past
by the way,
Escobar.
is just remarkable
Right.
in and of itself,
Right.
that he's in his 3rd inning of work here 2 days into camp, essentially, which tells you he's been waiting to get here to get himself in now game shape. He's in great shape, period. He always takes care of himself, but he wants to get in game shape, and he looks good out here as we've been talking about it.
Well, again, it's that different. He's built different, right? He talked about on day 1 here about how he's going to be ready to throw 100 pitches opening day. He's going to get there. He talked when he signed about how he actually contributes that dead arm that happened in the playoffs last year to not throwing enough. You know, it's a different animal. I mean, he's old school. He's a throwback in that regard.
I can remember, and this goes way back, Tony Pena, all-star catcher, great influence and great mentor of mine. I came up and sort of replaced him as a Cardinal catcher, and he did nothing but teach and respect me. But he threw every single day, 365 days a year, and he threw hard from the beginning. And he didn't throw 50 feet. He didn't throw 60 feet. He threw 350 feet. He stretched his arm out every day, never had a sore arm. Obviously not a pitcher, but had one of the greatest arms in the game for a span of 20 years. And I think some of these guys are built that way. The more you throw, the more you repeat, the stronger you get, especially if you know how to control your own body, which obviously Max Scherzer does.
We don't need to get into the greater discussion that obviously always exists, this debate about starting pitchers and not going as deep and not throwing as much. But you know, the interesting thing, you hear from one of the game's greats saying he's got to throw more. You look at Jacob DeGrom, and when he really took off, it was in part due to changing his throwing program where he does not stop throwing in the offseason. You know, I remember listening.
And throws twice between starts.
Throws twice between starts. There's something there, right? There's something there where I understand everybody trying to protect the assets, and certainly the sports science is way beyond our understanding, but there's a debate to be had when you talk about the top guys doing it a different way.
Yeah, you know what? In my own experience, everybody on the field here goes through a period of dead arm. A lot of times it's in spring training, a lot of times it's in, early in the season, and a lot of times it's in August. That dead arm doesn't necessarily recover with just resting it. You've got to continue to work it and program yourself through it, and then it'll come back a little bit. But pitchers, I don't claim to know the best solution for pitchers, because Jeremy Hefner and the medical staff know the dynamics of a pitcher's arm more so than a position player's arm. But as a position player, if you get dead arm and rest it, as soon as you come back, you get soreness or tendonitis, and you've got to work through all of those early season pains that you already had. Throwing through it, grinding it out a little bit, usually it comes back on the other side of it, and maybe that's the way Max has been conditioned over the course of his career.
So Todd, just because we're going to stop bothering people and we're just going to let them watch without having to listen to us after this half inning by Max, now that we're getting through the third up down for him, what are your takeaways so early, but how does he look to you? Anything stand out so far?
The fastball actually stands out, which is
Poppin'.
not unexpected at this time of the year. It's going to be, sharper than his off speed. His slider looks a little flat. I think he's got, a lot of, reps that is going to get that to dive a little bit more than you're seeing it so far. But his fastball's got a little better pop than I expected. It's got nice movement. He's been throwing it up in the zone and trying to get some strikes up in the zone. There's a nice slider right there. But I think that probably, as much as anything, is the zip and the life on his fastball. I mean, they're going to throw 90 plus or so, but he's got that extra life. You saw him throw it by a couple of guys upstairs, which I think is a good sign.
By the way, I'm going to just take a little peek behind the curtain here. Our producer, Gerard Guilfoyle, who
is he texting you?
Yeah, he's snarky text right now from our producer, Gerard Guilfoyle, who does an okay job, I guess. Says, hey, Gary Cohen, can I get some counts and out resets? And then he said, I need a pitch count and miles per hour on these pitches, so let's work on that.
Okay,
can't just say nice job.
We'll make it up along the way.
This is enjoyable.
Because we have no board. I'm not carrying my radar gun with me today. So, you know what? I'm going to estimate this next pitch and give you the count. It's 0-0, by the way. I've got that count correct. There's a fastball up in the zone. That's 1-0 to Dom Smith, who took him deep his last time at bat.
Keep going. You're clearly much better at this than I am. So I'd also, since Gerard is clearly watching, no, I'm unavailable for that pregame hit whenever you do ask.
So it's interesting because we talked about Max's competitiveness. That's changeup right there. He goes up in the zone with the fastball, first pitch to Dom. That's not by accident. Dom took him deep on a fastball up in last time. He goes up. Now he changed speeds with him with that good sinker, that good sinking changeup away. Now he comes back in and Dom takes him deep again.
What did Dom say yesterday to some fans?
Max is shaking his head. He's like, okay, I thought I was going to get him back inside right there. And you know what? You got to credit Dom for that, because that wasn't a terrible pitch. I saw McCann move back in. Max tried to come back in with him, and now he's a little frustrated out there, but that's great hitting by Dom Smith right there.
How long do you think it'll be before Max acknowledges Dom in the clubhouse again?
If he gets up again, Dom better put on some padding, because Max, even though they're teammates, Max might try to stick one in his hip.
Listen, we talk about big years for a lot of guys. It's a big year for Dom. right? And we don't know what his role is going to be on this team right now. I think, as currently constituted, won't be an everyday player, but will probably get a lot of playing time. And he's got a lot to prove after last year.
He does. And I mean, look, that's 2 swings, but that free and easy, quick bat that he had a couple of years ago, we saw it here. Max coming off the mound, who I know, even though this is just work, is going in there not thinking about all the outs he got, thinking about the 2 balls that Dom hit and the execution on those. It's just the way he is. Now he's going to probably go give Dom a little grief as he's walking in there with that smile on his face.
Yeah. Well, I'll be thinking about all the mistakes we made, the lack of
I'll try not
the
to
lack
think about
of
it.
miles per hour, lack of outs, resets. But Gerard and everybody else, we hope you enjoyed this stream. For
I
Todd
enjoyed it. It was
I
great
enjoyed
to
it.
actually watch some spring training game right here and actually see these guys out there trying to, get themselves ready to get back on the field, early April.
And keep it locked because Max Scherzer is not done. We talked about 3 innings. He's going to go 1 more. This stream will stay up, but they don't want to hear from us anymore. So Todd Zeal, I'm Steve Gelbs. Enjoy the rest of the stream, and we'll see you later on today. Mets Hot Stove tonight. Todd Zeal with Brandon Nimmo and a whole lot more.
Indeed. Thank you, Steve.
Hands up.